Well, this is my last sermon, except for 10:30. Maybe for a while, who knows. This past week, I was in Washington, D.C. at the Festival of Homiletics. And, you know, unless you're a preacher, that word homiletics may be very unusual to you. It just means homily, homiletician, preaching. And there were 1,900 preachers from all across North America, Canada, New Zealand, Iceland. I met someone from, mostly though, from the U.S. And they represented a lot of some Episcopalians, Methodists, you know, all the churches. And it's a wonderful 5 days of nonstop worship and lectures and workshops for preachers. And I counted up, and I think I heard 15 sermons in the past week. And they were wonderful. And I thought maybe that would inspire me with what to say on this, my last Sunday. But words fail me. And what do I say to you, my beloved friends? Well, I searched and prayed through all these texts today. All are rich, wonderful texts, but nothing really captured what I wanted to say to you. And then on top of everything, this is Trinity Sunday, which is the only Sunday of the year that the church sets aside to consider a theological concept. And words can fail us all in understanding the Trinity, the three in one. As Father Richard Rohr, he was at the Festival of Homiletics. He's a Franciscan priest who has a wonderful ministry of contemplation, and he preached and spoke during the week, and one of, 24 people who did so. But he signed some books, and I have several of his books, but I bought one. It's called The Divine Dance, and it's on the Trinity. And he, in this book, presents this one God who is belovedly in community as all vulnerable, all embracing, and all given to you and to me. He says the Trinity is the Christian tradition's most surprising gift. God as community, as friendship, as dance. The three persons of the Trinity are in an eternal dance with one another. So God is one, God is community, and this is the community of God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, or the Lover, the Beloved, and the Love, the Spirit of love that encompasses God's self and us. And the texts today that Marshall read all allude to this three-in-one God in some way. Of course, Isaiah 6 is a very famous passage in which Isaiah the prophet answers God's call. Who will go for us? And it's plural. He's not saying me. Who will go for me? It's an us. And of course, Isaiah says, "Here I am, send me, Lord." Well, 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, I answered that call to go to St. Gabriel's, a church I had never heard of except for my friend Father Richard. And I obeyed that call from the Lord and the bishop. And my life has been unalterably changed because of the love and the grace and the incredible sense of service here. Well, in the midst of all this, in Psalm 29, verse 11, we all need to trust this verse. The Lord shall give strength to his people. The Lord shall give his people the blessing of peace. And I want you to know that you will always be in my prayers, that this will be so. On Monday night at the conference, we met at the Washington National Cathedral. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's an incredible space for worship, huge. But it was interesting because, a few years ago, Washington had something like a 4.5 earthquake. And that's not real big, but in Washington, where they don't usually have earthquakes, it was pretty big. And as I walked into the cathedral, there was a whole yard with different gargoyles and pieces of the roof that had fallen from that earthquake, and they're repairing them and preparing to put them back. And then inside, as you walk in, the huge nave, there's a section about the earthquake and another piece of huge carved granite that had fallen. But they're working on that. They've got scaffolding up. They're working on it. They're continuing to build up the National Cathedral after this earthquake. And that was a powerful image to me, that they hardly stopped what they were doing as a house of prayer for all people in the nation's capital. Now, interestingly, the Washington Monument also suffered some damage. I think the elevator doesn't work very well from the same earthquake, and that's closed indefinitely, which maybe, Washington can be a little hard to get things done sometime, but the National Cathedral is already at work rebuilding. And I think sometimes churches face the cracks and the challenges, the earthquake tremors sometimes in various ways. But God's heart keeps beating actively. And I think that can apply to St. Gabriel's over these past several years. And then we listen to Romans chapter 8. In the first verse, Paul says, "So, brothers and sisters, we are debtors." And he goes on to say some really good theological stuff. But the word debtors struck me because I am a debtor to you. I came to be your leader, and you made me a disciple. And I came as the interim priest in charge, but you all have really made me a priest. And I came as a stranger, but you made me a friend. And I am eternally in your debt. Then, of course, the Gospel, John chapter 3, this much-loved passage. It's very interesting. Nicodemus, this Pharisee, this leader of the Jews, comes to Jesus at night, and he's obviously questioning and wondering what is going on here. It's a very real, almost emotional discussion. I don't know if you picked that up, but Nicodemus is confused, and Jesus almost gets frustrated with him. But they're having this discussion of life and death, of spirituality. And here, Jesus, the Son of God, speaks of God the Father and the wind of the Spirit. So you get that picture of the Trinity here. Now, we get a little bit sidetracked or overly focused on John 3:16 because we all know and love that verse. But there's a lot more in this passage to ponder, and as I was looking at these texts, the thing that struck me here was that Jesus says, "The wind blows where it blows. We know not where." And I'm not sure where the wind will blow me yet, but I know that you, filled with the Holy Spirit, the wind of the Spirit in power and love, will be right here in Oakwood serving God. We, you and I, will continue blowing in the wind of the Spirit wherever we are and responding to the call of God to us. "Here am I, send me." Beloved, life comes at us sometimes very hard and sometimes in surprising ways. And life's realities have forced me now to make kind of a Sophie's choice. But this I know, God has knit our hearts together. You will always be part of my life and ministry. And I thank you for the privilege of serving you and of serving with you, with God, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
I love you.